What is up, everybody? Welcome into Shout, a Buffalo Bills football podcast preview edition. The Bills heading to Indianapolis to face the Colts. Both teams dealing with some injuries. We'll get into all of that today on a special preview episode of Shout, which is brought to you by Tops Friendly Markets. And right now, 'tis the season to save on groceries and all of your holiday gifts. Christmas bonus is underway at Tops. Shop and save $10 at all your other favorite stores and restaurants. With over 25 gift cards to choose from, there's something for everyone on your list. And don't forget to treat yourself to some extra savings too. Save on great gifts like toys and games from GameStop or Toys R Us at Macy's, things for your home from Lowe's, that new big screen TV you want from Best Buy, and so much more just by shopping at Tops. Be Santa's biggest little helper with Christmas bonus from Tops. Ryan, it is an exciting time. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of this matchup, we got some housekeeping. November 16th, November 30th, 2 live shows this month. First at Wingnuts, then we're heading to Turning Stone. Let everybody know what they can expect to come out to one of these live shows.
All right. I'm making sure you're not going to start the video on me when I start talking here. So we're good. All right. Good. I was making sure you weren't going to start that video on me.
What video?
Oh, for Turning Stone. You are going to do it, aren't you?
What's up, everybody? Matt Parrino here with Ryan Talbot. We're the host of the Shout Buffalo Bills football podcast, and we have some big news. We're coming back to Turning Stone Resort Casino. That's right, New York Rec and Social Club, November 30th, the night before the Bills host the San Francisco 49ers. It is going to be a night of Bills football, talking, food, everything, Ryan. We cannot wait.
That's right, Matt. Nobody travels like the Bills Mafia. Come out and join us for the podcast and hang out with us after. The event is open to the public. Guests must be 18 years or older. Come out and let's get after it.
It's going to be a live edition of Shout, a Buffalo Bills football podcast. We're previewing Bills versus 49ers. See you then.
Knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. I don't have the power to stop you from hitting that button. But yeah, Turning Stone on the 30th. Excited to get back there again. Last year we were there during the holiday season. It was pretty awesome with all their Christmas displays up and going. And obviously Wingnuts cannot wait to preview the Bills matchup against the Chiefs.
So let's get into it. Big news today. Keon Coleman ruled out for Sunday. Kind of on that track, and the update that we got from Sean McDermott was that this could be a week-by-week thing. There's no real timetable. He ruled out, he thinks, injured reserve, which I think is a good sign. Right. There's also that bye week in there, though. So if they were to put him on injured reserve, he'd really be like, missing 5 weeks. So there's a little bit of buffer area in there. Maybe they can get him back. If they're not, we'll see how it transpires next week. But it was interesting. Walk into practice afterwards today, and he was he was out there. Like he's been out there all 3 days. We weren't able to see it at the walkthrough, and then today was one of those kind of like lower key practices. But Amari Cooper listed as one of 3 Bills that are questionable. So now you're talking about Keon Coleman, Amari Cooper, 2 of the pivotal parts of this offense. I think could be a pretty run-heavy approach from Joe Brady this Sunday in Indy.
And even if they are healthy, I still think this should be a good time to be run-heavy. Go with the guys that are 100% or as close to it as possible. James Cook, Ray Davis, the way they've been running the ball, the way this offense has been able to open up lanes for those guys, that is absolutely or it should absolutely be one of the main focuses of this game plan. Also could be a Dalton Kincaid game. I'll get more into that here in a little bit. But, I'm just sitting here, Matt, and it's amazing. We're sitting here in November now talking about how important the loss of Keon Coleman is and how fortunate Bills fans should be to be hearing that, because a lot of times rookies don't hit the scene and make all these big plays and show up the way that he has. So he's really developed nicely this year. He's been that big play guy at times, and I know without him it certainly hurts. Amari Cooper status is up in the air, but I will say the Bills on their practice photos of the day, they showed him catching passes. That's one of the hurdles to clearing to getting him to play. Obviously, the fact that they're showing that, I think, should make fans a little bit optimistic that he could be out there and play on Sunday.
Yeah, and I think getting Cooper back would be a little bit of a regulator because, one of my players to watch in this game And actually, little preview for Sunday for Buffalo Kickoff Live, my player that I picked is Curtis Samuel, because if you look at this season, the way that it's progressed, it's almost like led to this point, right? 9 games. He still hasn't had a signature game yet. Honestly, he hasn't even really had a game where I think he's had more than 40 receiving yards. So it's like, no, let alone a signature game. Like, can we find a pulse here on Curtis Samuel in this Bills offense? And I think that's what we could potentially see this week. I think he's getting healthier week by week. He was out there last week, probably shouldn't have been. They kept him in the red jersey all week this week. They're going to need his speed on the outside, especially as a team that's probably going to lean on this run game. I think that's the area that you could really do some damage. Some teams have had success on the ground against Indy this season. You know, they're going to play a lot of 2 high safeties. They're going to try to take the deep part of the field away from Josh Allen, a Gus Bradley specialty. So when that is the defense the teams want to give the Bills, you run it down their throat, a lot of times into light boxes. So I'm expecting him to be a big player. But then you start to look around this receiver room. Okay, Khalil Shakir, this could be a big game for him. You wanted to talk about Dalton Kincaid. I'll open up the door to that as well. There's a couple options on the practice squad. I don't think that they'll elevate Jalen Virgil again because they've already elevated twice. If they elevate him again, they'll have to kind of pivot probably and not keep him on the 53 and then release him and try to get him to the practice squad. You could probably do that, and maybe they do. But there's another couple of guys. I mean, this could be the week that we see Dean Cain. We could see Tyrell Shavers, who's only been elevated once. And then I'm not going to talk about it because some people think that I have a little bit of a thing for KJ Hamler. But KJ Hamler is always in your back pocket. And so I asked Sean today, you have this foursome on your practice squad. What do you think about that group? And he's like, listen, that's a resilient group. It's not easy, especially, and he didn't say this, but I kind of read between the lines. KJ Hamler, who's a veteran in this league, former second-round pick, to sign a futures deal in January, go through the whole process, the spring and then the summer, and then just be plunked down on the practice squad and seeing some of these kind of, no disrespect, but some no-name guys getting thrown opportunities on the 53-man roster, and you're kind of just sitting on your hands. He said he's really liked this whole group, and there might be maybe some more options or opportunities for some of these other guys.
Yeah, and Deon Cain would be interesting. He just re-signed, though. Hamler would make the most sense to me. Shavers too, with only 1 elevation. But you're right, Jalen Virgil doesn't make much sense. He did a good job when he was out there blocking wise, but 3rd elevation, hard to justify a roster spot for him, obviously. So you want to keep him down in the practice squad. But regardless of what they end up doing or elevating, I still think they have enough here between the run game and then obviously with Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox. More so Kincaid, but I think this is a big tight end game for the Bills in this matchup. And it was pointed out in social media that the last 3 weeks, the Colts have been very bad against tight ends. They have allowed 22 catches for 256 yards and 2 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks. So knowing that they've had the struggles there and you have some athletic tight ends in Kincaid and Knox leads me to believe that they could be the focal point of the passing attack, even if you have Amari Cooper out there, which would be at less than 100%. Obviously, Khalil Shakir is going to get a lot of targets as well. They love getting him those quick passes where he gets a lot of yards after the catch, but also just out of the slot, he's been great this season.
Thank you so much for watching here. Responding to a couple comments here. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel as well. We really appreciate all of your support. Now, I think that's a great observation. And, this Indianapolis Colts team, it's had some success at times this season, even when they went to Joe Flacco, and things kind of changed a little bit. You go up against the Minnesota team last week, and it was ugly at times. The passing game really couldn't get going. And without Anthony Richardson, that I think has really helped further unlock Jonathan Taylor in this offense. And now that they've kind of pivoted off of Anthony Richardson and gone to that very stagnant Joe Flacco veteran, non-mobile quarterback, now it's a little bit easier, I think, for defensive coordinators to devise a game plan to attack their offense. So, when he's back in the pocket, they could run some play action, but a lot of it is like, you don't have to worry about, the RPO game, the zone running game. Sure. I feel like it's easier to play against this offense with Joe Flacco in there.
Yeah, Flacco, they were hoping he would provide some kind of spark in his first matchup coming back into the lineup. They had 1 touchdown in that game, that had a defensive score that really shouldn't have counted, but it still held up in that game against the Vikings. But Flacco, there's things he does well, but the offense isn't as explosive with Flacco. And I know Anthony Richardson, I watched some of his snaps earlier this season. He is so frustrating to watch because he'll drop a 60-yard dime down the field on one play, and then he'll miss terribly on another. But he does give you a little bit more with his arm and with his legs and the athleticism. And, he was one of the more inexperienced quarterbacks in that draft class, but they were kind of projecting what he could be. And I'm sure there was a lot of Josh Allen projection in that with the size, the strength, the ability to run. I was against the whole move to bench him. I get he pulled himself out of a game for a play. He was tired. That's a big no-no for the locker room, everything else. But, Flacco is limited. I get how good he was last year with the Browns. But he eventually got figured out last season too, come playoff time. I think that there's a lot out there that the Bills can take advantage of. One, the Colts being without their starting center, Ryan Kelly, in this game. I think that hurts on the interior for the Colts. And with a guy like Joe Flacco, who is not very mobile anymore, that could lead to some good things for this pass rush. And obviously, too, against stopping the run game of the Colts.
I was listening to Josh Downs talk about not having Michael Pittman in this game, the back injury. This isn't something that just popped up, or that just popped up this week. This is something he's been playing through over the last couple of days or weeks. And now you're in a situation without your number one wide receiver against, one of the better kind of passing defenses in the NFL. The numbers might not bear that out this year, but historically under Sean McDermott, this is a defense that finds a way to limit the big plays in the passing game. And Michael Pittman is that big play threat. I had on James Boyd from The Athletic, who covers the Colts early in the week, and he was talking about this is a team that just doesn't get any production from the tight end position. They haven't been able to find that guy. Mo Alley Cox at times can give you good plays, but it's not something that's sustainable or that teams fear. Now you take Pittman out of the mix. Now you're talking about a couple of youngsters and Alec Pierce and A.D. Mitchell. You obviously have Josh Downs, who talked about what it's going to be like to face this Bills defense this week without Pittman. It's a huge loss in this game. I think it's one of those. I think you can make the argument, depending on what happens with Cooper, the Colts are much more dependent offensively on Pittman than the Bills are on Coleman.
Yeah, I agree with that. And especially when you're looking at the veteran aspect, the fact that Pittman's knowledge of the game, route running, everything, that he's learned over the years, he's so good at what he does in his craft. So it is more important that they are without him. I'm a big Josh Downs guy, though, Matt. And it's going to be interesting to watch how he fares against this Bills cornerback duo, because I could see them moving him around a little bit, lining up on both sides. Christian Benford and Rasul Douglas are both playing as well as anyone in this league. Downs has some speed to his game, has some explosiveness. That's one of my favorite matchups to watch this upcoming weekend in terms of a defensive player on this roster, or players. But they're certainly going to be hurting without having their number one receiver in this game.
Flacco's had a good run. When he replaced Richardson late September, going and beating Pittsburgh, losing a close one to Jacksonville where he threw for almost 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. But the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're arguably the worst pass defense in the NFL. When he faced, Tennessee, things got a little bit more difficult. They won, but then the wheels came off against Minnesota, and you saw the limitations of this offense run by Joe Flacco. And listen, not having Pittman, like we just mentioned, is going to take this thing to another level. You mentioned not having Ryan Kelly is a huge issue. They're getting their left tackle back in this game, who missed last week with the concussion. But you got to wonder where he is at, if there's going to be any time that it takes to get back on task. David Trelizio asked where the Bills pass rush ranks in the NFL. I don't know what you're specifically asking there. Maybe in terms of pressures?
I would think pressure.
I'm going to look that up here.
Yeah, look at pressures. I mean, hurries, pressures, QB hits. I mean, they all get kind of bundled together. So that's assuming. In terms of sacks, you could also look that up as well. But I would think pressures overall would be what to look for.
Well, if we're looking at pass rush grade, that's the one thing that I can look up on PFF real quick. The Bills come in at 7 at 75.6. And if you look at their defense and you tally up all the pressures this season, you got 39 from Greg Rousseau, who's amongst the league leaders in pressure rate this season. 17 for Oliver, 14 for Jones, 13 apiece for Miller and Epinesa. Then DeJuan Smoot at 7, Dwayne Carter at 5, and a couple more, some of the secondary pieces at the second and third level. What do you think about Yannick Ngakoue? I talked about him today on the Insider text line, which great pivot point. Become an insider today, 716-528-6727. You become an insider, you get a 2-week free trial, and then it's $3.99 a month after that. I was sharing with some of our insiders a question that was asked about Ngakoue, who got released by the Ravens yesterday, and the idea is that he's going to get brought back to their practice squad. But if not, does it make sense for the Bills? Let's talk about that in a second. The Shout text line is brought to you by Carrie C. Byer, attorney with the law offices of Francis M. Litro, located at 237 Main Street in Buffalo, New York. If you or someone you know is seriously injured, give them a call, 716-852-1234, or check out litrolaw.com. Ryan, Yannick Ngakoue has 67 snaps this season, or 87 snaps this season. 67 of them have been pass rush snaps. So he is getting on the field to rush the quarterback. He's not going to add a lot of value in the run game. And maybe that's okay. What are your thoughts on the Bills maybe trying to go out and add him a veteran pass rusher and see what you get out of him there? Because, Epinesa, for as good of a season as I think he's had, still not taking that step as a pass rusher. And maybe Ngakoue can bring some production there.
The drop off in his game has to be studied. I was a huge fan of his game early on in his career in Jacksonville. He got some big money contracts elsewhere, and he just has never lived up to that. And then he joins the Ravens team where you think maybe he can kind of revitalize himself. And now they're releasing him and hoping he can clear waivers and join their practice squad. I mean, that just says it all right there in terms of where he was as this once young, promising pass rusher to now potentially clearing waivers and joining their practice squad. I think there's something to be said about using him only as a pass rusher. Absolutely. He is a liability in the run game. So you could use him out there on those obvious passing downs, the third and longs. But at the same time, isn't that what you want Von Miller for? And you're going to want Greg Rousseau out there. I know that maybe if there's an injury, next man up, you have Javon Solomon and a young kid that you want to put out there possibly in that same situation. Yannick Ngakoue could still provide value in a pass rusher role, but I'm not nearly as high on him as some other people are. I still think he's a name in some people's eyes in terms of fan bases where they hear that name and, oh my gosh, this guy got released. He really has not played well the last few years.
Asking about the Bills defensive line, David, 21 sacks on the season, which ranks 14th in the NFL. Now I mentioned the pressures that they generated according to Pro Football Focus. Pro Football Reference is a little bit different. They're middle of the pack, actually in the bottom third of the league in pressure rate as a defense, 67 on the season. That comes in at a 19.7% pressure rate. Only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 teams have a lower pressure rate percentage on the season. So that's an area where, listen, anything that you can do to like jumpstart that, I think would be advantageous at this point. But I think you got to kind of look internally. A couple of people mentioned in the comments, you need Von Miller to be a big piece of that. Like, gone are the days where it's waiting on the injury to be better and him to be in a better situation. It's got to be now, because there's no more time to wait. There's no levers for Brandon Beane to pull to bring in other players outside of a crapshoot move like Yannick Ngakoue. I think Miller's got to step up.
Yeah, Miller absolutely has to step up. And to his credit, in those first few games of the season, he was ranked very highly in terms of pressure rate and what he was doing on the field. Obviously, when they went against the Ravens, he wasn't out there very much. He serves his suspension. This is a game where he needs to start ramping that back up in terms of getting after Joe Flacco and creating those pressures, moving him off his spot at least. And I think this is a good opportunity in terms of the matchup for him to do so.
You're watching Shout here on Friday, November 8th. Let's get into, now that we've kind of moved past some of the key storylines, talking points going into this game. What do you feel like is the key to the game? You mentioned the tight ends being a huge factor in this game. Defensively, is there something that you feel like is a key to the game that has to happen for the Bills to win this one on the road?
Man, they haven't won in Indy in quite some time. I saw it, what is it, 25 years, I believe, something like that. It's been a crazy amount of time. Just playing their game, as generic as that sounds, the Bills have done such a good job this year, Matt, of being a more balanced team, being more reliant on the run at times. I know there's times we sit here and we say it's so frustrating when they go run, pass early on in those scripted periods. But there's a lot of the times with the run game on first down or on, second and medium, you're getting good chunks of yards and you're either moving the chains or you're setting yourself up for third and short. Don't go away from what you've been doing this year offensively, which I don't anticipate with Keon Coleman being out and knowing that Amari Cooper, even if he does play, is going to be at less than 100%. But offensively, continue to do what you're doing. Defensively, I like this matchup a lot for Buffalo. I know they have Jonathan Taylor. I know how this run defense has looked at times. But with Joe Flacco back there at quarterback, I really think this is an advantageous matchup for Buffalo. So it is, as simple as it sounds, stay the course of what you've been doing through these first 9 games.
So for me, a big key to the game, I like what you talked about with the tight ends. I'm going to go to the running game and specifically the usage, right? Like, I think this is a game where you can really work to get both James Cook and Ray Davis involved in the offense, whether it be in the short passing game. How much can you get them on the field together at the same time? Reggie Gilliam, he's had he was averaging 5 to 8 snaps a game. Can you do some 2-back sets with Cook and Ray Davis in a game like this, where maybe that's a team that's more susceptible to the run game because of, the fact of how they play their defense? I like the idea of getting them both on the field together. And I think one thing we haven't seen from Joe Brady is willingness to play James Cook a little bit more creatively as a receiver at times. And I think that could put a lot of strain and shock on a defense if you have Cook lined up in the slot, Ray Davis in the backfield, and you start throwing some crazy motions at a defense, and they're backed up to play against Josh Allen because you got 3 other wide receivers or 2 wide receivers and Dalton Kincaid on the field. And now the options open up and you could do a bunch of different things. And I don't know, maybe it's something where you want to keep some of that in your back pocket for the playoffs, but I'm starting to become a believer in find something like that you can do well at times and work on it during the season. And this feels like a game where there should be no reason why both of these guys don't see 50% of the snaps against the Colts.
And I would love having both of them on the field at the same time, even in the backfield at the same time, where, maybe once you hand it off to Ray Davis, next time you pretend they hand off, and then you have James Cook running out of the backfield and catching a swing pass or something like that. You line up Cook in the slot, like you mentioned. There's so many things. And Davis, by the way, obviously can catch the ball too, as evidenced by that 63-yard touchdown last week and what he did in college and what he's done here early in his pro career. So they are both guys that can hurt you on the ground and through the air. So yeah, I would like to see some snaps where they're both on the field. And I also want to see Ray Davis in general see his snap count, rise this game and going forward, because he is such an asset to this offense when he's out there. He's playing so well. I know it's hard to justify getting James Cook off the field, but Davis in his own regard has been great for the Bills.
All right, it is prediction time, Ryan Talbot. I got the Bills in this one. Let me bring up my score because I don't want to get it wrong. 28-17. Honestly, I made this when before the final injury reports came out. But again, I think the Bills are going to really rely on the run game. I think defensively getting Christian Benford back this week is going to be a huge shot in the arm for that defense. Balin Spector popped up on the injury report today, which means he could likely be down on Sunday. He's listed as questionable with a calf injury. Again, people are talking about Jordan Phillips as who's just got added back into the mix as a injury problem year after year. Balin Spector continues to just struggle with staying healthy. which could mean Joe Andreessen is that first guy off the bench if there's any issues with Dorian Williams or Terrell Bernard. But I think the Bills are able to have some success rushing Joe Flacco. At the end of that game, their offensive line crumbled. And I think this is going to be a battle of attrition, like which run game can kind of get going early in the game, can get a lead, play from ahead. That's got to be the goal of the Bills. And then late, you can pin your ears back. Von Miller, AJ Epinesa, Greg Rousseau, Ed Oliver, rush the quarterback. Bills win 11-point win.
Yeah, I had the Bills winning this one 30-20. They come out, and maybe it's a missed extra point to get them to 30 instead of 31. Who knows? But I just think that
so soon.
I just think that this offense is firing on all cylinders still. And even without Keon Coleman, they're going to be able to put up points against this Colts defense. As for the Bills, the defense that is, I think they'll give up a few points here. Jonathan Taylor is a outstanding back. Joe Flacco might be able to do something early on in this game. But as things settle, Buffalo's defense usually rises to the occasion. Wouldn't be surprised if they log an interception or two against Flacco in this matchup. Bills win by 10. They move to 8-2 for the first time since, I believe, 1992.
Man, that is it's changing the script up a little bit, right? What a lot of people thought this was going to be this season for the Bills. This is a Indianapolis Colts team, Ryan, that has been in a one-score game in every game they've played this season. So, I like the Bills in this spot on the road. I mean, they went to Seattle where nobody goes and blows the doors off the Seahawks. So I think that it's well within reason. But this has been a Colts team on both sides of the ball that has figured out a way to keep games close. So I think also priority number one, take care of the ball. I mean, the Bills turn the ball over a couple times in this game, and it gets really difficult to win. All right, we're brought to you by Tops Friendly Markets. I'm not going to have Ryan talk anymore because that voice, we need to save it for Sunday, my friend. I appreciate you battling through. This season, let Tops do the cooking, and you'll be the MVP. Visit shop.topsmarkets.com. Elevate your food game with the greatest selection of custom cakes, desserts, pizza, sandwiches, fresh fruit, cheese trays, fried chicken, and so much more. Save time and easily shop from the convenience of your own home. No fee pickup on all of the game day deals. There are no service fees, no tips, just the best deals in town. All right, Ryan, rest up that voice, get some honey, get some tea, whatever you got to do. We'll be back on Sunday, Bills and Colts. I know somebody asked earlier, I'll be on the road solo in Indianapolis. I know our good friend Derek Babcock is going to be in town, so I might be meeting him for a beer. If you're an insider, send me a text. If you're going to be in Indy for the game this week, maybe we'll set up a little quick beer get together around 9:00 for some Shout Insiders. 716-528-6727. I saw David might be there as well. David, hit me on the insider text line. We'll get together. We'll take a big picture. We'll send it to all the insiders. All right, take care, everybody. See you Sunday.